Greetings from Florida. Today is July 3rd, 2022. Both of the readings today have a similar theme, travel lightly. The first reading comes from the Hebrew Scriptures from the Elijah-Elisha cycle. Elijah was the first individual prophet for the Hebrew people. Until that time, the prophets traveled in bands rather than alone. Elijah had done successful battle with him in the previous chapter of 1 Kings to show everyone that Yahweh was more powerful than their gods. In this former chapter, Elijah challenged the prophets of the Canaanite gods Baal and Asherah, totaling 850 of them against one. The challenge was for each to summon their god to bring down fire on their altars. After they all failed, Elijah called down Yahweh after he had doused the offering with water, including the trench surrounding it. Yahweh came through, burning up everything with a ferocious flame. Then Elijah was ordered to kill all 850 of the false prophets. But Elijah knew that his time on earth was ending and he needed a worthy successor. The passage for today from 1 Kings tells this story. The call of Elisha. 1 Kings 19, 15-16 and 19-21. You can see him putting his cape over Elisha as a way to share the power. You shall anoint Elisha son of Shaphat of Abel-Maholah as prophet in your place. So Elijah set out and found Elisha son of Shaphat, who was plowing. There were 12 yoke of oxen ahead of him, and he was with the 12. Elijah passed by him and threw his mantle over him. He left the oxen, ran after Elijah, and said, "Let me kiss my father and my mother, and then I will follow you." Then Elijah said back to him sternly, "Go back again, for what have I done to you?" He returned from following him, took the yoke of oxen, and slaughtered them. Using the equipment from the oxen, he boiled their flesh and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he set out and followed Elijah and became his servant. No time to say goodbye, to pack, to get a change of underwear even. The only people I've heard of today that do this are fleeing a fire or a flood. The next reading comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10. Here following is a picture of the feet of one of the disciples that Jesus sent out to preach the good news. The disciples of Jesus were only to stay where they were received well. If they were not welcomed, they were to immediately shake the dust from their sandals and move on. After this, the Lord appointed 70 others and sent them on ahead of him in pairs to every town and place where he himself intended to go later. He said to them, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore ask the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. Go on your way. See, I am sending you out like lambs into the midst of wolves. Carry no purse, no bag, no sandals, and greet no one on the world. Whatever house you enter, first say, 'Peace to this house.' And if anyone is there who shares in peace, your peace will rest on that person. But if not, it will return to you. Remain in the same house, eating and drinking whatever they provide, for the laborer deserves to be paid. Do not move about from house to house. Whenever you enter a town and its people will welcome you, eat what is set before you. Cure the sick who are there and say to them, 'The kingdom of God has come near to you.' But whenever you enter a town and they do not welcome you, go out onto its streets and say, 'Even the dust of your town that clings to our feet, we wipe off in protest against you. Yet know this, the kingdom of God has come near. Whoever listens to you listens to me, and whoever rejects you rejects me. And whoever rejects me rejects the one who sent me." These two stories of discipleship, Elisha immediately having to leave his oxen in the field to follow Elijah, and Jesus' disciples having to go out by twos to spread the word, with nothing but their staffs, even going so far as to greet no one on the road, because the message was urgent. These two scriptures really hit me hard. As most of you know, Cheryl and I do not have a traditional church fixed in a particular location. We too are missionaries, traveling to the far corners of the earth to spread the news about hearing loss and to do advocacy and install hearing loops. In the last several months, we've been to Tampa and North Fort Myers, Florida, Kearney, Omaha, Norfolk and Nebraska, Oakland, West Des Moines, Pella in Iowa, Salina in Kansas. In the next several months, our work will take us to Illinois, Oregon, Washington, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, and Missouri. Right now we're in Florida, where we travel so we could display my new book, Between the Deaf and Hearing Worlds, Blazing My Own Trail. You can find it on Amazon. It is my journal from the day I became deaf until a year later, my struggles and triumphs. Here's a picture of Cheryl as we finally got to the hotel. Well, you really have to look hard. We have so much luggage, all you can see is her head. I swear on a stack of Bibles that we needed every one of those suitcases. But it was really, really hard to move around with all that baggage. But as I was tripping over it all, as we hauled it into our hotel room, it reminded me of how cumbersome we sometimes make our lives. It is so easy to pile up unneeded things, furniture, books, clothes. It seems like too much effort to sort them out. So we just keep adding on. We do that too with emotions, frivolous use of time, relationships. So these two stories may help you think about how you use your time, which relationships no longer nurture you, and why you still need to hold on to them. They are all clutter, a distraction that slows us down, saps our energy. It took a lot of courage and faith for Elisha to leave his oxen and go without even saying goodbye. It took wisdom for the 70 who were sent out with nothing to know when to stay and when to go. But it is the process all of us who profess to follow Jesus need to go through more and more often, to think how easily we get entangled with things, people, activities that do not nurture us. An old Indian story, as told by Paramhansa Yogananda, shows us where our inattention may lead us. There was a monk in the hermitage. One day he said to the master, "Master, all I'm doing here is work, no spirituality. I'm going to leave the hermitage." The wise master said, "Oh, no, you have to work for God, otherwise you will fail." "Oh, no, I'll be all right," said the monk, and took 2 pieces of loincloth and a begging bowl with him and left. He was sitting under a tree. He was very proud that he had renounced the world, renounced the hermitage and master's wish and everything. First thing in the morning, he sees that a mouse had worked on his extra loincloth. He got very worried and said to God, "At last, Lord, I gave you everything, and now you want too much for my clothes." There was a man passing by who saw this monk worried. "What's the trouble, master?" asked the passerby. The monk wasn't a master. He was a student trying to be a master. He replied, "I'm worried for my loincloth. These mice are working on even the last piece of cloth I have." "Master, it's very simple. Why don't you keep a cat?" said the man. "That's wonderful. How will I get a cat?" said the monk. "That's simple. I will get you a cat," said the man, and went home and brought a cat. The mice fled as the cat came, but the monk had to go to the village to fetch the milk for the cat. So the monk was worried about the milk for the cat. The same man who had helped the monk before saw this and asked, "Master, what is worrying you now?" "Well, I have to go all the time to the village to beg for milk," said the monk. Well, that's easy to solve. Get a cow, said the man. Where will I get a cow? Questioned the monk. Well, I'll give you a cow, said the man, and brought a cow for the monk. Now the monk had a cat and a cow. The cow was known as the saint's cow, so it was freely eating from everyone else's field. After a year, villagers could not bear it anymore. Teacher, we are tired of your cow. We have tolerated it for 1 year. But how am I going to feed my cow? Said the monk. Why don't you have your own land? Said the villagers. How will I get the land? Questioned the monk. We will give you all the land you want, said the villagers, and gave him the land. So he got the land, several cats, and several cows. He borrowed children from the village, and they all worked for him. After 2 years, the head of the village came and said, Master, we have tolerated you for 2 years. You borrow our children, they're never at home, always working for you, taking care of your cats, dogs, and cows, and everything. But how will I maintain all these things? Said the monk. Why don't you have your own children? Suggested the village head. Well, that's a good idea, but how? Asked the monk. I will give you my daughter in marriage, said the village head. The monk was seriously considering marriage and having children to help him manage the cats, the farm, and the cows. When his master arrived there, he said, I thought you had renounced the hermitage because there was too much work. What is this? You have built up a big house, a land, and everything, and I hear you're going to get married? Master, this is all for a rag. You are right, and I will walk away with you, said the monk, and walked back to the hermitage. So I'd like to end with this short video of a Buddhist monk praying, and the cat who is playing with him, trying to distract him.
ดับทุกข์ดับโศกดับโรคดับภัยดับเคราะห์เสดียดไรหายไปทันทีเพียงลำดับต่อไปจะเป็นการบูชาพระพุทธกลางคืนหรือพระราหูพระราหูเป็นเทวดานพเคราะห์ประเภทบาปเคราะห์ให้ผลในทางลุ่มหลงมัวเมาพระราหูถูกแทนด้วยสัญลักษณ์ใด
So how many cats do you have? Do these metaphorical cats keep us from focusing on our spiritual path? Do we routinely do a spiritual inventory of how we use our time? Do we continually sort through our belongings, our relationships, to see what we really need to hold on to or need to let go? How many cats do you have? Maybe it's time to do an inventory. End.